In this episode, we're going to bring you up to date on all the progress we have made over the past 3 years on our 100-year-old farmhouse fixer.
And then we're going to share with you the things that we've done this past year, the really fun stuff.
Okay, so beginning year one, we had been searching for several years to find a rural property that we could afford, and we ended up with this one. And why was that?
It was scary. Nobody else wanted to take it on. It didn't have a foundation. That was the biggest thing, but there were lots of other reasons why.
But the reason we did buy it was we thought it could be fixed up, and most importantly, it had a great location.
Location's amazing.
Yeah.
And it had a second living, a manufactured home that we could live in while we fixed it up.
So we're just going to kind of skim over basically what we've done for the first 2 years. If you want a little more detail, we have videos that are like the year one progress in review and year two progress in review. Anyway, but right now we're going to try to give you the Reader's Digest quick version. So we bought this place knowing that we could fix it up. We're in rural Oregon. And what did we do first?
Well, first we needed permits and plans. So permits and plans were first in order to get the foundation done, and we had to find someone to do the foundation, and those surprisingly took months.
Yeah, and just a quick note, after we bought it, then we realized how hard it was to put a foundation under an existing house. And long story short, we found a guy that could do it without jacking the house all the way up, and it was actually much more reasonable than we thought. So that was the first thing. While we were having the foundation done, it was coated in vinyl siding, and so that's not really in keeping with a 100-year-old house, right?
Right. And it had been causing some rot and things, so we needed to take it off.
And it was kind of stained like old Tupperware. So while we were doing the foundation, we took that all the way off. And then we did some remodeling on it. And why did we do that?
Well, it was one of the reasons we needed the plans and permits, the foundation and an addition off the back, because there was a bedroom and we wanted a main floor bedroom, but it was very narrow. And so we needed to bump it out about 8 feet in order to fit a queen size bed and, nightstands and that kind of thing.
There's people we know whose closets are bigger than this master bedroom. And so basically what we did was bump the back of the house out 8 feet, which you think would just be minor, but everything from plans to demo to construction, it's kind of more complicated than you think.
Yes, it is. And so that was the end of year one.
Yeah.
And we just started on, we hired the people and they started on, and it was halfway done at the end of year one. And we should say we're recording this in January, and that's when we took possession of the house 3 years ago. So that was all year one. And then in January of year two, when year two started, we finished or started to finish the addition.
In Oregon, it's great timing to have the roof ripped off during the torrential rains of December, in January. Yeah. So we got that fixed. We had completely ripped out the HVAC system as far as all the piping and the, what do you call those? The conduits, all the ducts. They call them ducts. Yeah. So we had to have that. We had the furnace turned and we had those replaced.
We needed to take ducting upstairs. There was nothing for heat or air upstairs, even though we were told that it had been all done. This is one of the things in buying an old house. I would say year two, the theme of year two was finding all the things that we had to redo that we didn't think we'd have to redo. It said it had updated electrical. And it wasn't knob and tube, so I guess in a sense it was updated, but it wasn't to code. And the plumbing that had been updated was also not to code. And then we had to completely redo really almost the HVAC system. So
yeah. And then we had to redo the redo on the electrical because we were given the option of having a really high ceiling in our bedroom, and all the wiring for the house was going through at about the 10-foot level. So we got that done. That it was a problem and we solved it.
Yeah.
We added windows.
Lots of windows.
We added gutters. In Oregon, if you don't have gutters, the rain splashes and it makes your house really stained and dirty.
We started the kitchen,
Yeah.
gutting the kitchen and removing the wall that was going to be between an enclosed porch and that was going to become part of the kitchen. That was a big deal. Again, more permits, more engineering, you know.
We pulled up all the flooring on the main level of the house, and again, it was a mystery. By the way, I want to say that we'd seen somewhere in the legal work that it had asbestos siding, so we kind of were holding our breath as we took off the vinyl siding. We were very thankful it didn't. We also had an inkling that maybe it would have had fir floors underneath the floating floor, linoleum. There's tons of old floors here added, and it did, but it wasn't usable.
No, it's actually the subfloor. There's no other floor. It's just this little layer. It's just a layer of fir with lots of holes everywhere, actually, and lots of variation in. It's not a very good shape.
But that's your floor in a rural farmhouse in 1920s Oregon. So we discovered, we needed to fix that, to fix the floor. As we did things like replace windows and fix things, we discovered that structurally it was not really up to code. Things like headers and king studs, and I'm not a builder, but anyway.
We widened all the doorways, like this one behind us. They were all just narrow doorways. We widened them all, and in widening them, we realized no doorway had a header. In redoing the windows, no window had a header. So year 2 is really redoing and doing things we thought we wouldn't have to do. So I guess that's part of, you always hear that with remodeling, that you're just gonna find a bunch of other stuff that you didn't think you'd have to do. And that was year 2. So that brings us to year 3. Last January, we, after recording our year 2 progress, we started on what we thought was gonna be the fun stuff. And it has been fun, as far as it looks totally different than what it looked like at the end of year 2.
Yeah, and one thing that we wanted to do for the house was make it look appropriate to like 1920s, and we weren't doing like a restoration, right? We didn't get a historian to help us. We're doing like maybe a renovation or what would they call redecoration, just kind of like taking it back so it looks like a farmhouse, what you'd expect. And there were unfortunately few elements in the house that hadn't been remodeled in the
I don't
50s
think
and
anything.
60s.
Originally, I thought there was nothing. There were no original doors, no original fixtures, no original really anything. And so the goal was to bring stuff back that might have been there. But when we found the beadboard ceiling and then discovered a lot of beadboard walls in the kitchen, we decided that we were gonna restore those and then add new beadboard. So we have a full beadboard kitchen, which wasn't actually in the plan. It was kind of, we just discovered it and we're like, this is cool, let's go with this.
So then with the structural mostly done, we were able to jump in and start doing some more finished things. And so the bathroom was a big one. We wanted to use reclaimed wood to do the walls. Actually, the bathroom had a beadboard tongue and groove ceiling too, but it took a lot of work to bring that back. Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Right.
So but what I found out about using reclaimed wood, and you can see that in the video, is it's really different between each board, and it took me a lot of time to rip the boards into the same size to get them to fit. It took so long, but the bathroom looks great.
Yeah.
It really does. It
That's like one of the things that, if you hired a contractor, unless they just really cared about that stuff, they're just not going to take the time to do that. So that's kind of DIY love right there, that you can take the time to really reuse things. We did find out during year 1 and 2 that this house was not very well made, as you've probably heard about the lack of headers and things. But also, you just never know what you're going to find when you open up. So we found beautiful shiplap when we took off the addition, and we thought the whole house was going to be this beautiful shiplap, so we could just take off all the modern wallboard with the modern texture and we can just reveal the shiplap. Well, when we started to do that, it was a hodgepodge of whatever wood they could find. So the back room that we had taken off was nice shiplap, but the area we turned into the bathroom and the laundry room, but the other part, it might have been plywood, it might have been plain wood, it might have been tongue and groove wood, and they're just all kind of plastered together. Some of it because the house evolved. Where we have the bathroom now, originally, as we discovered when we took everything off, used to be a pantry. There was a door going from this room into that. There was a big window, and you could see where there were shelves. So it was like, you know, a 100-year-old pantry cold storage area. So obviously it had changed because it was a bathroom when we got it, much smaller. So they had changed that. There were other doorways that we found in the living area where they just put plywood to cover them up. So we couldn't just take off the wallboard and use the original shiplap in very many places. So we took off the shiplap we could use and then made sure that there was one room with all original shiplap, which is the bathroom, and then used the original in the laundry room. So we have 2 rooms where it's original.
Yeah, it's original. And then the kitchen, I swear, if you see it, it looks original.
It's half original.
A bunch of it was here, and we bought some new, and when it's all painted and put together, it looks like it really goes.
Yeah, it's mostly painted and put together, and as you can see from these photos, it's just blending very nicely, I think. The biggest structural thing we had left to do in year 3 was to reconfigure the stairs. We took off the siding and could see that the original stairs, which were still there, as you can see in this photo, you can still see that they're super steep, and they had just built this, and not in a very good way, built the new steps over the top, which were super rickety, too big actually for the space, and then they went up to the landing, which were again very narrow. So our goal was to make it feel like you were walking on a stairway that matched, and we didn't hit our head when we went up. It was surprisingly very, very difficult. It was difficult for us where we're at to find someone who would return our calls and do it. And when we did find someone, it was just a lot of talking it through and figuring out how to make it work in the space, which is an old house issue.
And so then, I mean, this is all pretty expensive, and we wanted to do a shiplap look in our bedroom and in some other rooms just to make it look old again. But if you've priced shiplap, if you just go to Home Depot and look at their commercial shiplap that you can buy, it's expensive. It's like $16 a board. It's crazy. And so we saw an idea on, I'm gonna font the name of the gal's video, I forget her name. It's so great. She showed how to do this process where you take really thin, it's like a plywood, but it's got a wood veneer, a nice wood veneer on one side. You rip it into strips and you nail it to the wall. And then
glue and nail.
We learned glue and nail. And then when you paint it, theoretically, it will look like you've got much thicker boards than you've put up.
Yeah, and it's not perfect. Like, that was my concern with just buying shiplap, especially the nickel gap shiplap, is they're so perfect. And when we took off the wallboard and saw what was originally there, it's not perfect. You know, the gaps are all the same, and I loved that imperfection, and I wanted to try to keep that. And because we had to cut it, and so they're not all perfect, it kind of just mimics what was there, and so I'm really happy with it. And the thing that I want to mention about what's different, because if you're at all following old farmhouse and renovations, a lot of people are using this faux shiplap, and they're using plywood. Well, plywood has just shot through the roof price-wise in the last 5 years, and so this is still cheap. It's super thin, and it's still a cheap plywood. So we were able to do, what did you say the cost to do a room or a wall?
Yeah, it would be like...
It's like $11 a sheet. And
so I figured you could do a wall for like $50. Way cheaper than even the not gnarliest plywood.
Yeah. And this has got a nice smooth surface. So.
And it worked on the walls and on the ceiling, but we had a lot to learn about attaching it to like sheetrock and how that works.
Yes, and we're going to do a how-to on that.
Yeah, we'll go into more detail.
Yeah,
but we still think it's really cool, but there's quite a few challenges to just doing it. Depends what it's underneath.
Yeah.
One thing that was missing from the house was any door that looked like it was made before 1956. So we got a great deal on old doors.
Yes, and we mentioned that at the end of our last progress video last January, is that we had found these doors, and I had attempted to strip them myself, which did not work, so we were going to take them to get dipped. And we drove them up to Portland, and they dipped them, and it's all what do you want to say, ecologically friendly? Is that
I
what
guess.
So they
All the toxins stay in that tank where they dip them. I don't know.
I don't know. They've worked it out.
I wouldn't drink it
All
if
with
I were-
the city of Portland. They did a fantastic job. The people that we worked with were just this wonderful old man, and he even stripped every bit of the hardware, and there were a couple of the old locks that weren't working, and he fixed those for us so we could reuse the hardware. It was amazing. It was really good.
It was worth it, yeah.
And those doors are beautiful. They're fir, which is typical of what you'd find here in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm just oiling them to leave them their original color. And they have all the aged patina in them. They're really nice. The other big theme of if year 2 was the theme of redoing everything, year 3 probably had 2 themes, which was painting, and buying. And I'm here to say I am so tired of researching sinks and faucets and lights. And it sounds like it's going to be fun, but it is not fun. And we have to have 3 sinks and faucets to match and lights for all the different things. And I wanted to buy them, space out the purchasing, so we were doing it to afford it and buy them when I got sales.
And what happens is you'll like order a sink, and you'll have in a plan, okay, the sink should fit here, or whatever your plan is. And then months later, the faucet comes, and you can't remember, this faucet looks bigger than I thought it would be? And then you're like, oh, is the faucet gonna go over the sink and dispense water onto the kitchen floor? You know, things like that you... different from getting it all at once. Anyway, doing the wood strips worked so well in the bedroom that we thought we would do it for the living room and dining room. We weren't really sure. It had this textured, kind of groovy 1970s textured sheetrock on it, and we knew that didn't go. And so my brother-in-law, who is a super huge help, basically you need 2 people to put this stuff up. It's really flappy. He helped me do both those rooms. We got those all done, including the ceiling.
Yeah, walls and ceiling.
We were going to do some other paneling on the ceiling, and it turned out to be really expensive to do it.
Well, the ceiling, if we would have taken the wallboard off, we would have had really nice wood ceilings, but we had an issue with electrical because there were 2 fixtures in the ceiling, and they were only on remotes, no switches.
So get this. So there are 2 fans in the living room and dining room, and there's no switch on the wall to turn them on and off. You have 2 remotes, and heaven forbid you lose the remotes,
or
and you're always picking up the wrong remote.
And you don't have a new battery.
Yeah, or you're out of batteries, or not a really good way to live. So we thought we're gonna have light switches, you know.
Yeah. So there wasn't really an option for us other than to put it in the ceiling, and so then we needed to cover it up. So we needed to figure out a system. I really love how it turned out. We just finished this a couple weeks ago, and I'm calling it a minimal farmhouse coffered ceiling look because it's small, but it just adds so much character to a house that really needed character. It had been like stripped of character, and the walls and the ceiling in the living room and dining room look fantastic.
We're gonna make a video on how to do it. We were so impressed for how cheap and relatively easy it was. We're gonna make a video on how to do it because really for a couple $100, it's dramatic. It just looks like you've had some kind of high-end designer do your ceiling. So
and
very cool.
Also in this last year, we put a wall back between the large open living and dining area. And if you watch the first year 1 progress, we're actually sitting in the living dining area, which you can see is one big room. We actually even hosted a wedding for my niece and nephew that year, which was fun to do, but I always knew I wanted a wall back there because number 1, as we were just deconstructing everything, we found out there used to be a wall. There used to be 2 doors on the front. It was a 2-door house. One of those kind of houses that had the fancy parlor the family never used, and then the family parlor, and you came in the door. I don't know how guests figured out which door to come in, but family knew which door to come in. And there was a wall between that, and you can see it on the floor where the wall used to be. Well, we put 1 single door in, as you can see, and then we moved the wall a little bit, so it's not exactly where it was, but it creates a wonderful use of space, I think, and it feels more like a farmhouse when you walk in, because they would never have had huge open spaces like that. And now we have a place for an entry, place to put, hang coats, as well as the feel of a living room, dining room. And we kept the openings really big. We widened all the openings. They're all 7 and 8 foot openings, so it still feels really roomy, but just, defines. I think it just gives a real definition to the space.
So you're probably saying, well, wait a minute, you're talking about the stairs, but you haven't talked about anything that's at the top of the stairs. And that's because we've really been concentrating on the living area downstairs. But I will say that one thing that was kind of fun that we discovered when we were upstairs, we just kind of pulled some things like pulled up the flooring, pulled up the plywood sheeting. It's kind of cool is that the fir floor up there is usable. And so we are planning on painting it, and that's really cool. It's gonna look just like an old farmhouse. And that was part of the original old farmhouse. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, we'll have more on upstairs. We're just trying to get the downstairs done for Pete's sake,
Right, right. Because we hope to be able to move in and then work on the house as we're living in it, like most people do.
So to bring you up to date, we're just going to take a quick walk-through tour here and talk about some of the things we've done, and you get a better look at what we've been talking about.
Hey, so in order to finish this 3-year, we thought we'd just do a quick tour. We did do an in-progress tour a couple of months ago, so you can look at that video to see how far we've come in just a couple months. So it gets fun when you start putting the finishing touches on. And this room didn't really exist a couple months ago. We had it sort of framed in, but this is the new dining area, complete with its wallboard and its minimal farmhouse coffered ceiling technique that we just really love. Now you can see this needs to be painted. We've just caulked and filled it, so that's where we're at now with this. And in the living room, we also did all the walls and the ceiling. And you might notice this is new, this window over here. We decided to go ahead and widen the window. We were going to save that for later, but we thought that's a pretty big inconvenience when you're living in a house. So we decided to go ahead and widen it, and we had to order custom windows, and so they're on order. So we're kind of waiting for that, but that will be all window now onto our beautiful view. So we're really excited about that. We are able to finish some of the molding on the windows. This is the original size of the molding. We know this from upstairs because the one original thing they had in the house was molding upstairs in the windows. So we're recreating the molding down here, and I think with the walls, it just looks great. I love it. And like we mentioned, we're so excited to have a beadboard ceiling. This is what you would have found in Victorian farmhouses. So it wasn't in the plan, but when we discovered the ceiling and a lot of original walls, we worked really hard to finish what we could, to restore what we could, and then buy new. Luckily, you can still buy beadboard in the same, it's not exactly the same, but it works. And that was our beam. So this whole area was the enclosed porch. And you can really see it coming together now with this vintage cabinet that we have put together with a new cabinet on the bottom and the vintage one on the top, and a built-in, so again, some of that character that the house didn't have, trying to put it back in there. And this is a stairs that caused us quite a bit of consternation, I would think, but we're really happy with how they turned out, and we did add this closet underneath the stairs. This is just empty space, so that we'd have a coat closet, and it's actually really big, a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. So we have really nice storage, and it'll kind of match the refrigerator on that side. So these, they'll kind of go together. That'll be the refrigerator. And so I think we've done a really good job in getting storage space. You can see under the stairs. My brother really worked on this. It actually looks really nice inside there because he finished it completely, but that's where my canning things are going to be that you only get out once a year, but I can have them handy. So this hallway was just completely reconfigured. It wasn't even here. They had a little narrow hallway. So we did have to add, and we got the new beadboard and we ran it up and down just to be different, but the ceiling is all salvaged wood that we salvaged from other parts of the house. And my brother put this together for us. I think it turned out great. So here's our bathroom that we reconfigured. We widened it about 2 feet in order to fit have a window. It was windowless, and we are able to fit the shower. This was the tile that took us pretty much months to do as our DIY experiment. It's hard. It's hard to tile a shower, I will say. I tiled the floor. That's easy. That was no big deal. That took a day. It was pretty easy. I'm standing where the toilet is going to be, that is on order. So this will be the toilet, and this is the vanity that we have just finished installing the sink. And we bought this on Facebook Marketplace and just configured it to be our vanity. These are the light fixtures. I'll show you what they're going to look like when we get them up there. And then I have a gold mirror to go there. So I think that'll be kind of nice. And if Brian can scoot around, this is one of my favorite spots. You won't see it until you come into the bathroom and close the door, because the door will be here. But we found this, I think on Craigslist, and my sister-in-law painted it for me, this beautiful color I'd picked out. And I think it just looks wonderful against the original wood walls that we have here. And this is the finished master bedroom walls and ceiling done with that technique. All the molding, beautiful molding, has been done on the windows, and everything's been painted. We have yet to add the beams on the ceiling. We're going to just age some new wood beams that we're going to put up there. And when that's done, we'll just need a floor, and the rest of the molding in this room will be done. I want to show you something I'm really excited about. Our closet, we were able to find cedar at a really good price, and so we completely covered the walls in cedar. So we have a cedar closet, and the ceiling again is reclaimed wood, which I think is again really cool. So we haven't done a whole lot more on the laundry room, but I did want to mention this is the original wood. All of this is original that we left here. So it's pretty rough, but I like it. We put beadboard paneling on the ceiling, not the tongue and groove that we used in the kitchen. And then Brian just finished, see, it hasn't been primed or painted, but he just finished this window, and he used all reclaimed wood for this, and we used reclaimed wood for the door molding. So we tried to reuse everything that we had been able to take off and salvage from the house. Yeah. All right, so that's the end of our year 3 progress. Pretty excited, and the goal is to actually move in the next few months here. So stay tuned to see if we make that goal. We have already had setbacks at the beginning of this year that might keep us a little bit longer, but we will be in this house before the next progress update, year 4, I'm sure, and that'll be fun. So definitely subscribe so you can keep update. We're gonna keep doing those DIY videos that we talked about for the things that we've done, and more progress updates.